I never thought I would ever want to tell the story of bullying that I received as a 49-year-old man at the time. It was the summer of 2013. I found myself to be stalked online by someone I did not know, could not ascertain the identity of, but they were always one step ahead of me in everything I did. Anything I posted was removed. Emails were sent out on my behalf to people that I never sent emails to. The situation grew worse and worse by the moment. Out of desperation, I reached out to the RCMP. They pointed me back to the Winkler Police Service. I phoned up the service and I asked a simple question: do I have a right to live in peace and quiet without harassment inside the city of Winkler? They didn't hesitate. They said, absolutely. Can I tell you my story, officer? And I began to tell him what was going on. He said, we'd like to help. And that moment launched an investigation that spanned 3 months. In the course of the harassment, the person that was harassing me made phone calls to my place of employment, filing false charges in an attempt to get me fired. That person contacted a pastor of a church on which I was to participate on a mission trip to Haiti to work on an orphanage. And they told the pastor that I was a pedophile. I couldn't be trusted. They sent out emails to friends. They circulated all kinds of rumors about me that weren't true. I withdrew from the community. I became like a hermit. Some people I called up that I thought I could trust, and I bore my soul to them as to what was going on. I was feeling less and less like a person than any other time in my life. And I began to understand for the first time why children who go through bullying are so crushed, and why they will take such desperate measures to get out of it, to get out from under it, to stop it from happening. And the people who stand by and watch it, I find, are complicit. But I was a 49-year-old man. I'd owned and operated businesses. I'm a fairly confident person. And I found myself at that time barely able to weather it. Sleepless nights just haunts you. Bullying is one of the worst things a community can have in it. The police, in around November 2013, phoned me up one night. The officer said, I have good news. We made an arrest last night. I was shocked. I didn't think this could happen. I had worked in cooperation with the Winkler Police, and they were good. They did a thorough investigation. They spent 3 months of resources on it. I caught a lucky break on a website that I was on, and the person I reached out to said, I can see exactly when somebody closed your account, and I can see what the address is too. I says, would you please give me the IP address? She said, I'm not allowed to. I said, I understand that, but I'm in a desperate position to end the bullying. My life is virtually falling apart around me. Friends were leaving. They thought I'd emailed them stuff I never emailed. She agreed, reluctantly she agreed to give me that IP address. And I went through the MTS Internet Security Division. Now there's a phone call I thought I'd never make in my life. He explained to me about internet addresses and IP, dynamic and random. I said, thank you. What do I need to do? He says, I need authority to release that IP address that is hacked into yours. And the Winkler Police did their job. I commend them. It was a great investigation. 3 months later, made the arrest. And on that night in that phone call, the officer said to me, I want to make a deal with you. I thought, well, what kind of deal would I have to make? He says, I want you to agree to not pursue it. I said, really? You made an arrest, the person confessed, and you want me to agree not to pursue it? He says, yes. I can't do that. He says, well, I'm not going to tell you anyway who she is. So there's a clue. And I left it. A few weeks later, a note appeared on the back door of my house. A friend retrieved it. He was watching my property at the time because I was fearful that this person could do anything. And I said, hey, can you keep an eye on my house while I'm on the road? And he phoned me one day. He says, there's a note on your back door. I says, what does it read? He says, I know what she did to you. The person's name was in the note. I won't mention it. I know what she did. If you'd like to know what I know, please call me. I was reluctant to make that call because would I indeed be starting something new? I didn't know if I could trust that individual either. So I had my neighbor make the call, and he phoned me back and said, she's for real. She wants to help you. So I called her. She says she identified who she was. She was a close friend of the individual. She says she has told me and many other people how she got away with it. She's bragging about it because the police arrested her and told her they weren't going to do anything. They only issued her a letter of addressing her conduct. From there, I went to many other agencies. I went to Cameron Friesen's office. I said, how can this be? He made some consoling remarks, but didn't do anything. I wrote a letter to the Minister of Justice. He pointed me in a different direction. I pursued that. And I eventually decided that I would pursue the police report through the Freedom of Informational Personal Protection Act, FIPA. So I got in contact with someone there, and they told me what the process was. I followed it. And the response from the city of Winkler, official governing body, was, we don't answer to FIPA. I thought to myself, you got to be kidding me. You, Winkler, are somehow immune, exempt from the Freedom of Personal Privacy Act? That can't be. And FIPA sided with me. They said, absolutely, they are under our jurisdiction. And according to the process in asking for the release of the information, they must comply. They refused. I got a letter from the Winkler Police Service that said, all you want to do is get revenge. I said, no, all I want to do is see justice done. I wouldn't take revenge in my own hands, ever. There are legal courts and legal ways to pursue that. A letter of rebuke from the Winkler Police Service, the very agency that helped me to get to where I was. I was right there on the doorstep. They just weren't going to go any further. And that person had a friend in the police department. I knew the officer's name. He's still the officer there. It took me to pursue the release of that report going through the Ombudsman's office. It's even hard to say, but it's a good agency of the government to go through when you want some help bordering on legal. They made a personal appearance in Winkler to explain to the Winkler police that they were in fact under FIPA. But the police weren't stupid either. They issued a heavily redacted report. The police investigation that spanned 3 months ended up into a 32-page report detailing all of what happened, what the person did, when they did it, everything. But it was all redacted. I essentially got 32 pages of black ink. And that's where the matter ended. So I went to the next step. I pursued the I-team at CTV. I spoke to the assistant of Verilyn Kubidik. If I've got that right. If I didn't, I apologize for pronouncing your name wrong. They were more than anxious to talk to me. I gave that thought. I held a pause on that one for a minute because I would be going into the public eye with this terrible story. I phoned up decided to phone up the office of the courts, and I talked with what would essentially be a district attorney in Manitoba representing the Crown. I explained the entire matter to her. She listened extremely carefully, and she said, these were her exact words, "I would have loved to try that case, but I can't. The Winkler police have concluded the matter on your behalf, sir." I said, "I know, but I just wanted to know, in hearing my story, what would you have done through the legal courts of Manitoba?" I'll bring the story to a close. Why am I even telling it? Bullying can happen at any level. You can be bullied as an adult. You can be bullied as a child. And my heart breaks for children who are bullied because they haven't had a chance yet to develop a stronger constitution, to put some steel in their spine, to put truth into their minds, to dispel the lies and the false accusations that are just malicious. For no other reason, they're just flat out malicious attacks. But when we're older, we develop that spine, that steel that tells us this is wrong and I'm not going to back down, because if I don't stand up, others will fall down. You know, the story of the Good Samaritan is an interesting one. Jesus told it. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho is one of the most dangerous roads still today to drive. And of course he tells the story, and I won't tell the story, just the highlights, how the priest and the Levite went by. And they probably were busy, and they said, well, you know, how do we know it's not a setup? How do we know this guy is not faking it? How do we know there's somebody not going to attack us? I mean, maybe he's got some disease that we could get sick from. But I think the Samaritan, the Good Samaritan, as we know today, I think he looked at it differently. He said this to himself: if I don't stop to help, I can go by here too, for my own reasons. But if I do that, what happens to this man? It wasn't about focusing on him. It was focusing on another individual and saying, what's going to happen to him if I just ignore it? Why am I standing up for any of this? Why am I speaking up for any of this? Because if I don't, others won't. And we have stories upon stories in our community of heartache, of acts of aggression, of horrible things done to people. I won't get into the details. I've heard them firsthand. And those people are scarred for life. What were they told back then? Be quiet. Let it go. That's what I'm being told by my mayor. Let it go. I didn't say that. You're misinterpreting what I said. And now the other individual is kind of backing up too, so now I'm really on my own. But I'm not backing down. It's not for me. It's for the other people who would otherwise collapse and fall. Bullying at any level, threats of intimidation at any level are wrong. We have a right to speak up in a politeful manner with respect. But nobody owns the news cycle. Nobody dominates it and shouldn't dominate it and intimidate others to shut up and sit down and do what I tell you to do. Otherwise, the threat comes. There's a lot on the line right now. It's beyond vaccinations. It's beyond anything we thought we could. But freedom comes at a cost, and sometimes you have to pay the cost. We've been living luxuriously in the lap of freedom. The right to choose and make choices. That is on the line right now. And if we don't stand up, we're going to do a lot more harm than we ever thought. It's time to stand up and call it for what it is. Thank you for listening.